You are now listening to For All Nerds Show, a podcast about geek and pop culture from the perspective of people of color. For All Nerds Show is a member of the Loudspeakers Network, where we always say rest in peace to our founder, Combat Jack.
For All Nerds is hosted by Tatiana King and DJ BenHaMeen.
For All Nerds Show is powered by our listeners. Everything we do, from our podcasts, live events, our website, are all independently funded. Please continue to support us through our Patreon page at patreon.com/forallnerds.
Welcome to the For All Nerds Show. And what's up, y'all, and welcome to another episode of the For All Nerds Show, the voice of Urban Geek, the podcast where we discuss geek and pop culture from the perspective of people of color. And as always, in the captain's chair, it's your boy Scott Stunners, Professor Next. Oh wait, I fucked that all up. It's your boy DJ BenHaMeen, aka Scott Stunners, Professor Next, the Off-White King, Mr. Finisher, R.I.P. to Mr. C, Master Bastion, in Saba, and Apocalypse Nowish. Here in the spaceship, and as always, I'm joined by my illustrious co-host,
Tatiana King, the Grand Duchess of Tech, also known as Doc Aki, the coldest winter soldier ever, Tesseract Thompson, the Book of Ashanti, Dr. Doing Something Strange for Some Change, Madeline Pryor's, Dark Chocolate Phoenix.
You gotta say that one more time.
Dark Chocolate Phoenix.
It's got a ring to it.
And the Ting of the North.
There we go. That also has a ring to it. And as you hear and see, if you're watching us right now on YouTube, on For All Nerds TV, thank you very much. If you're listening to us on whatever podcast platform that you are hearing us, don't matter. However you're hearing us right now, it could be a multitude of different ways. You might be watching me on an Instagram story even right this second. But we are back for the, hurts to say,
I know,
the finale of season 1 of X-Men 97.
9-7.
Listen,
it hurts, but it feels so good.
True indeed.
They stuck the landing, my nigga.
Like, tens from the judges. You know what I mean?
They did their Simone Biles. There we
go.
One.
Thank you. I was thinking of a gymnast and you got it for me. There we go. Yes. Tens from the judges. Even Russia had to give it up.
10s across the board.
Russia always be hating.
Russia be like 9.2. It's like, nigga, you hating ass.
8.9, nigga. Fuck out of here.
You hating ass.
Yeah. No, 10s across the board. I don't really think I have complaints, fam. I was telling a friend of mine, shout out to my brother DJ Analyze, I was talking to him last week. And DJ Analyze is, as his name says, DJ Analyze, very analytical brother. And he's always telling me that I overhype certain things, right? Like, I told him Andor is the best thing Star Wars has probably done since Empire Strikes Back. And he's like, what are you talking about? He still doesn't watch it. So I'm like, well, you just don't know, nigga. But I was like, not to overhype X-Men 97, but I fully believe at this point it is the best representation of X-Men ever done besides the comic books. Like, I really enjoyed Logan. I really enjoyed a lot of those X-Men films. I'm not a hater of the X-Men in the black leather. I thought that was dope for its time. We talked about that with the Earth Tone King. Shout out to that brother who had a lot of, as always, anyone who joins us on this show is an expert. So,
points were made. Salutes to you.
Yeah, salutes to Earth Tone, who called a lot of things in this episode, Yep. So anyone we bring around here is an expert. Earth Tone was just yet another one. Shout out to the brother for joining us. But yeah, I really do believe this is the best thing other than the comic books. And I think it's so good because it's so true to the comic books, and it will get more people into the comics, I believe personally, than any of the movies have done up to this point.
It's so true to the comic books while at the same time telling a different story, telling a different perspective, and doing something.
Canon.
Hey, Hey, Guru. By the way, shout out to
whole
young
different one.
Guru, who
He will be here soon.
we put up that clip about we don't think canon being that required or important, and Guru said, I disagree.
Yeah.
All right, young Guru specifically. He said, I
Yes.
disagree. I gotta talk to y'all about it. We said, come through. So yes,
He
as
will
BenHaMeen
be.
said, he will be on the show. But yes, the fact that you have all of these different the multiverse of stories, if you will, and they have, as Earth Tone explained, they've masterfully crafted this cohesive, there's many different storylines that still have been addressed in a cohesive manner that has been completed in a beautiful manner. And it gives you, to your point, Ben, it gives you a sense of accomplishment. Like, damn, y'all really did that. Like, this is, I gotta say, I think this is by far the best showing of X-Men throughout the last few years. Like, regardless of what we're talking about, live action or otherwise, this is probably, for me, this is the best showing, best storytelling when it comes to the X-Men.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say last few years. I say ever, other than you know,
other than the OG.
Other than the comic books.
Okay,
And the OG. And the
and-
OG, yes. And the OG animated series. The OG animated series was, paved the way for this. They're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Okay.
Because as I said, when I went back and watched the OG, and a shout out to Dr. Drea, another one of our illustrious guests, because when I was discussing it with her, I didn't even see all of it. So I was like, oh, some of that stuff is corny, and some of it is, because it's still a kid's show and was operating under the pretenses of being a Fox Afternoons kids show. And also, like you pointed out, Tatiana, and other people pointed out, and I went and did the research on this, it did air out of order once, like, they got past the first Phoenix saga. Because episodes were being completed out of order. The network was getting them out of order. It was all kind of chaos. So for people watching it at that time, I'm sure it was hella confusing what was going on.
Yeah, I was watching after the fact, like, the fuck? Like, it just...
I believe it now, because I'm like, yo,
I was like, how did it get there? Who the fuck is Cable? Like, literally, one time it jumped, they was just doing regular shit, then Cable popped out, and I'm like, whoa. But
and then they would have episodes where they would be time traveling wild shit too. So if you weren't watching in order, I can't imagine how difficult that must have been. So, but they were still standing on the shoulders of giants because they were doing all kind of ridiculous retellings of the stories, just like they're doing now, compressing stories, doing their whole new canon with the stories. And all of Bo and the rest of the team are heavily reliant on what they've done. Shout out to Chase Conley. I want to give a big shout out to him because Bo was doing his point. And I really want to take this for a second too, because one slight, not issue I had, but when Bo started talking a lot, I felt like a lot of people were heaping all the praise on them and not the rest of the team. But this week, Bo made a point to be like, yo, make sure y'all watch the end credits. Look at all these people working on this show. And they made a point to shout out Chase Conley, the head director on the show, and all the other directors on the show, and talked about specifically how Chase and Bo were collaborators on this, how Chase even came up with lines for the script.
Like they on the phone talking, and he was like, bet, that's in the script.
Yep. And so that type of stuff really shows how this industry works, and I'm happy that Bo is really shining a light on that, because people often don't understand what a collaborative process it is to make a television show and how so many people contribute to it. But at the same time, how much fucking work a showrunner does, especially a good showrunner. And Bo seems to be, by all accounts, a very great showrunner, at least in terms of delivering a fantastic show. Being hard to work with and being the people person might be other things. Who knows? I have no idea. That's all whatever. I don't know. But at least in terms of delivering that show that they were asked to do, they did a fantastic job, as we can see. And everyone, man, Chase Conley, I'm watching shots this episode. I'm like, fuck, like, the action when Rogue comes through with the Gambit's name, remember it.
And I know we're gonna mention this later too, but Scott Summers, that nigga's fighting scenes, his fucking fighting scenes. And then someone else on Twitter pointed this out, like, and I agree, because I was drawn to those images. They showed stills of like the negative, like like a negative not image, but negative exposure of like, like where they invert, where the colors are inverted
Mm-hmm.
on a subject. So a negative exposure image of like Scott when he was shooting laser beam, and there was a Jubilee when she was doing her sparkles, and there was some other person
I
doing
need to
one.
see those. I
And
didn't get to see that yet.
it just looks so good. Like when we talk about the attention to detail, when we talk about the level of art, when we talk about the level of care, and that's what another point I was going to make that I forgot, which was the fact that the integration of Bo and the rest of the team's lived experiences as queer people of color, as queer people of color in this country, and then the integration of mass tragedies like 9/11, like Pulse nightclub, and all this other stuff, and how so much reflection and so much parallel story that you can get from what the X-Men have already gone through and are going through, like, and also the allegory that the X-Men stands for. Like, it's just so beautiful. The whole thing is incredible. And I know, as mentioned, we keep saying, oh, they're getting 10 across the board. No, literally everything I've ever seen online in the last 24 hours, everything is like 10, 10, 10, 10. Insane.
I mean, it's like I said, when I was talking to my man Analyzer, I was, I'm just like, dog, I really don't want to overhype this. But I said the same thing last week. I said, if they stick the landing, this is the best thing. And then last night, after I watched the episode twice, I texted him, yo, you watching this shit yet? Fire emojis. Like, that's all I could say. Because I've watched the episode twice. I've now seen the final episode 3 times. And every time I was blown away. Every time I was hooked into the drama and the action and the suspense. Every time this nigga Bastion pulls my girl up into the sky and looks like Rogue is about to take that L, I tense up like I haven't seen it before. Like, I don't know if she's going to survive this episode. Fantastic.
To your point about the fact that Chase Conley had obviously been very hands-on, as has the entire team, not just Bo. There's a specific line that he's responsible for, and it's probably and you actually made a note here. It's one of your favorites about minds are easier to bend than metal. I mean, they were just having a conversation. He said that's the one and put it in.
Also, he talked about how some of the images from the last couple episodes with Magneto and Professor X have come direct from the comics, and how a lesser director would be like, nah, I want to do this myself. But Chase was like, nah, hell yeah, that's what I was already thinking. Because that's the perfect way to do it. Like, the comic has already done it. We just need to animate these scenes.
Yeah. And also what the beauty of this, because there are, and also like they have done what eludes a lot of MCU films, which is trying to introduce especially more obscure villains or more obscure characters in general. They could go either way, whether they're heroes or villains. But the point is obscure characters and really making them matter and really having them have some type of weight. Like, the average person won't know who the fuck Bastion is, okay? The average person is not, and I mean, y'all will soon know who the fuck Apocalypse is if you don't know who he is, and so on and so forth. What's the other one? The Adversary. I didn't know who the fuck the Adversary was. Like,
that's a deep cut even for X-Men fans. You have to, like, as far as they've shown up since, but they were specifically part of the Fall of Mutant storyline, like 91, 92. You know what I mean? That's how old? Like, Jesus Christ.
That was before.
Before that, 88.
Beyond that,
yeah, it's middle. This shit's long. Like, you had to really be, into it to know the Adversary. But they made the Adversary a viable character. Everyone's like, oh my God, Storm voiced the Adversary. I mean, the same voice actress who voiced Storm voiced the Adversary. Oh my God, that's so ill. Everyone, I love Bo's defense of Storm on Twitter because, as always, we've talked about this multiple times on the show. There's a lot of, Black people who are very itching for representation, and very deservedly so. And so when a character like Storm is pretty much one of the major, other than Sunspot, who, we all worried about, Black representations, people want to see them do so much more. Even, my boy, another one of my brothers, shout out to Damon, he listens to the show as well. He was like, I wanted to see Storm do way more. Way more Storm shit. Not just the emotional shit, but the Storm shit. She wants to, they want to see the big clouds, the big ice, all that. But I feel like Storm had those moments throughout this season.
She's had that moments, even to the end. She's had these moments. And also whole episodes attributed just to her and her journey. I mean, she had a whole
Mm.
fucking journey. And my thing is, you're
Yep.
gonna see more Storm. This series has done more for Storm than all of the
Mm.
movies combined.
And I think that's just that thing when people get this, they want more. It's just like me right now. Like, I famously once said this on the show. Shout out to Julie and Elijah Martinez when Wu-Tang, an American Saga, with that drama series about Wu-Tang was on Hulu. I was like, I wish Wu-Tang could be on all the time. And that's how I feel about X-Men 97 right now. Like, I wish X-Men 97 could be on all the time. Just an episode a week. That's all I asked for. Forever.
We're getting season 2 and 3. That's already confirmed. Now, the question that I have, and again, hopefully, Bo, you'll be on the show soon. How, is it part of his blueprint or not?
I was to put up the meme of the nigga talking to the brick wall and be like, me trying to get
Bo to get on the show.
X-Men creators on the show.
I feel like you listening, Bo. I mean, you respond to our tweets.
Shout out to Bo and shout out to Chase Conley, who both, personally follow the God, and I've had direct conversations with them, and then I'm talking to this brick wall.
It's fine. And they probably they got away, right?
They busy, man. They busy. I get it.
They
busy.
Shit is
the
finale's out. Everybody's on. Sorry,
niggas
everybody's
is
on
talk
your
about Emmys. You know what I mean? Like,
of course. But
Entertainment Tonight calling right now. You know what I mean? They're like, all right, for all
nerds is calling, and
and
y'all listening. Everyone else who's listening, you want Bo on the show.
I don't know if Bo and them are even following Entertainment Tonight, but I do know.
Either way, y'all gotta at Bo, y'all gotta at Chase, and tell them to come on the show. Please do y'all thing. Respectfully. Funny is fine, but it has to still be respectful. But absolutely hit them up. Be like, hey, yo, we need you on For All Nerds. Tatiana Bang, it's like that. Like, you enjoy yourself. All this stuff, all this great stuff that y'all know is the case because you have seen the goodness. Let that happen. Now, that said, Ben, let's get into the details of this episode.
One last thing. Please don't ask Bo, especially to discuss the details of whatever happened. We're
not guaranteeing we're talking about that whatsoever. So
yeah, unless they bring
don't even mention that. That's not the point. Respectful, but ask. On to episode 10. Tolerance is Extinction Part 3, the season 1 finale of X-Men 97. BenHaMeen.
Mm-hmm.
They did that shit. Where the fuck do I start? Should I start from the very beginning? Should I start from what was the most prominent pieces of this episode? And when I say prominent, I mean the prominent themes.
Yeah. I think we got to start with Professor X and Charles's whole arc through this episode, because that, to me, was the crux of this episode, the crux of this season.
Mm-hmm.
It's been the crux of the X-Men from pretty much their inception. The opening of the show features, Charles versus Magneto from the originals to now. So
when apparently they was like, well, what if I was a mutant? Ha ha. Well, what if I was a mutant? You can't say that. Ha ha. Nigga, I'm a mutant. You too?
Now, and right there, and as people have rightfully pointed out, a lot of this can be taken as very queer coded,
Mm-hmm.
And I found that quite interesting.
Why?
Refreshing. But at the same time, I do have a question for you, Tatiana.
Mm-hmm.
Is it gay to love your homeboy?
Okay.
And I mean that seriously, because I've thinking about this, watching this episode and seeing people's reactions to it on, the social medias out there. Because my thoughts on it after I thought about it for a second were that because heteronormative relationships between men are usually portrayed as loving your homeboy is gay. The idea that a man can love his friend and not have a sexual desire for him might be, or not even a sexual desire, but a romantic desire for them might be taken as, that's all. It's like, that's why I was like, is this queer coded? Are Charles and Magneto meant to be two men who, can't express themselves in the times they live in? Or is it?
That's one way to do it. I took it as that's that nigga's brother. And
that's how I took it.
It's not gay to love your homeboy. And again, I'm saying love. Love is you can love someone, but there's levels of love. There are concepts of love and there are facets of love. And you can have different type of love with different people. You can have familial love. Like you and me, I have familial love for you.
Mhm.
We are not related by blood, but you are my brother. Okay, at the
Yep.
end of the day, you can have a love for someone where it does have there's a sexual intimacy there, or there's romantic love
Because
as
it don't have to be
well. You know,
sexual. Yep.
because sometimes there's no romance. That's another thing people don't know. You can have sexual intimacy or have sex with somebody and not be romantic with them,
And you can have romantic intimacy
and
with
not
somebody
have
and not have sex.
correct.
Yep.
So
And
there's
vice
different
versa.
there's different combinations thereof, but
Mhm.
just the idea, like if again, these are all as you mentioned, heteronormative terminology and
Yep.
definitions, which get flipped up on its head when you're looking at this from a queer lens. That's
Mm.
none of that shit means anything, right?
Mhm.
So if you're talking about just if you're straight and you're like, is this gay? You mean, does he want to be in a sexual relationship with another man? No, he loves Professor X, Xavier loves Magnus. That is his brother. That's his brother
Mhm.
in arms. That's his family member. No matter how many times Charles betrays him, no matter how many times Magnus may betray Charles, at the end of the day, they love each other. And they will
Mhm.
always have that love for each other. And sometimes it's love-hate. And sometimes it's complicated.
And I think that led me to another realization or like epiphany, I would say, is that like the idea of queerness, it spans to so many levels because the idea of heteronormative and what's shown normally in media is so strict. And so one way has to
Mhm.
be this way. So it's not, queerness has such a wide umbrella because of that. And because I don't look at things, to me at least, as as a typical, straight black and white man. I never have been. I grew up under Prince, fam. Like it's different. So I just don't. I don't look at it like that. But at the same time, I do see that Charles and Magneto could, in the right circumstances, play
They
some
would be
Marvin
together.
Gaye.
Could
That man give him
just
the right
like
look.
potentially Morphin Wolverine.
Oh, that ain't potentially.
I'm
I told
saying
you them
potentially
niggas was
because
doing wild shit.
Wolverine would have to agree, and that's
Yeah, there we go.
He's
There
not,
we go.
You know what I'm saying? He's not.
I still feel like Wolverine has. It just, it's one of them.
He
Yo,
hasn't said
fam,
it
we can't.
outright.
We no. Like like we said, they might have a sexual relationship without a romantic relationship right now, and that might be Morph's problem. You know what I mean? Because Wolverine's down. Look, my man turned into Sabretooth. If y'all read the comments, y'all
and they
not
started kikiing with each other. I'm like, wait.
first moment we get Bo, y'all talk about that. The first moment I get Bo on the show, that's what I'm asking about. Nigga, what? Like, because Bo's a fanatic of the comics like I am. And like me right now, being a fanatic of the comics, I'm disgusted with Sabretooth as a character. I think he's a monster. Like, I think he's one of the worst things ever. And it's
monsters,
like,
Letty,
monsters. And for this nigga to turn into him, and then in this episode turn into Jean,
yeah,
like some shit has happened between these two.
Wild shit.
No, Wolvie's done some wild shit.
No,
don't put that on my man Morph.
They're both implicit. They're both complicit in this.
Yes, it's Logan's fault.
Morph made the choices. You can blame Wolverine all you want, but Morph made the choices to turn into who he's turning to. For reasons. And like I say, Wolverine started kikiing. Ran off with the that was a
Sabretooth
thing. And Wolverine's defense in this episode, he was fighting for his fucking life. So
yeah, no. In this episode, Wolverine's just laying there. And, he turns to the Jean and that good, but he takes that extra breath. You know what I mean?
Not you sit here still. You will find blame on Wolverine for anything.
No, I'm just saying that. No, that's not blame. I'm saying that he feels something for Morph. He knows that ain't Jean. Just like he knows that ain't Sabretooth. Wolverine ain't he knows it's always Morph.
Well, back to Magneto and Professor X. I just felt that this episode, especially, I mean, throughout the series, the season,
my God,
but this episode, that writing being so brilliant and really that interaction. And I mentioned the complexity of interaction with a frenemy, a frenemy that you love, or someone where maybe y'all really fuck with each other one year and the next year you can't stand that person, but that you will always be connected with them through space and time. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they're old, right? So they've had years and years and years and years and decades between them. And that conversation that they had in Magnus's mind about being hurt and about betrayal and the meaning of family. And we talked, and we all, I don't know, people recognize that conversation about there's a difference between the family you're born into and your chosen family
Mm.
and the family you end up with and all this other stuff. Like, that conversation was so poignant. And to see it, the verbalization of it and the characterization of it, the fact that they're in Magnus's mind and they're surrounded by stormy waters. And there are people who are important to Magnus in his mind. You see Rogue, she's on that little tugboat, the tutu outside, and it's rocking, going crazy. Just the fact that
Also on the
Go
on
ahead.
the tugboat is Quicksilver,
yeah,
Scarlet Witch,
Quicksilver,
and Polaris,
his son and daughter,
and his other daughter.
his
And
other daughter,
that was a big moment for me because Polaris's name is also one of the names that's blacked
was
out
blacked out on his
on
file.
the sheet. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that was I was like, thank you, Bo. Thank you for
You have
acknowledging my
all
girl.
of these deep-seated, buried feelings that they're talking through, that you physically see a manifestation of. And it's in, as Professor X mentioned, you're in the elements. And it is consuming the both of them. And Professor X is trying to talk Magneto down from letting this consume him. And it's a larger conversation just about when it comes to letting your emotions consume you, letting certain traumas consume your mind and your life and how that affects you. At this moment, Magneto is trapped in his mind. His mind can break. It's on the verge, as is Professor X, because he's stuck in that bitch too. So to be able, for a lot of people, and the reason why I'm pushing this so hard is because the way people learn, it could be visual, it could be audio, it could be by doing, it could be a combination thereof. This show combined all of the elements of learning into one long scene about what all these different things mean, as mentioned, about pain, betrayal, struggle, the meaning of family, trauma. They were able to express that in so many different ways that anyone watching could understand, could learn, could relate. And that's why X-Men 97 is so damn brilliant.
I mean, yeah. So
The nigga said cold water is a trauma. What? Poetry! Timothy De La Ghetto. Come on. Cannons to these. Cannons in front of them. Cannons behind them. Come on, man.
And then beyond that, like when you want to talk about great strip writing, you have what you call A and B stories in an episode. And so the A story in this episode is Charles. Well, I'm not even sure which, but it's kind of like A1 and A2.
There's like
right?
A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah, but
stories.
A1 and A2 is the battle between Charles and Magneto, and A2 is the battle between the X-Men and Bastion, right? But both of them mirror each other. They are both about, well, one's about Magneto and Charles coming together, and the other is about Cyclops and Bastion coming together. And Cyclops coming to terms with, what he says in this episode, that we have to start doing what we've been telling humanity to do all this time, is to embrace the future and stop fighting it, which is the same thing as letting go of your past traumas. You see what I'm fucking saying right here? Like, you feel the chills that just came up my spine as I said that shit, because that's fucking what you call bars, nigga. Put the Funk Master Flex. You know nothing about that right there. Luna, I need that right there.
Press the bomb button.
Like, yeah, I need the...
That's called motherfucking bars, nigga!
Because, like, that's insane amount of writing. Shout out to Bo, the team. Like, to say that your past traumas are affecting you and you got to stop fighting the future. In one scene, you're saying that, and in the other scene, you're saying this as you're cutting in betweenst them.
And what did I say about different ways of expressing a thought? You're talking about not fighting the future, and you're showing people fighting the literal future. And I mean, the levels. I feel like that the Candy meme, the Candy Burris meme, where she says the lies, but instead of the lies, she says the levels. Like, yes. Come on. So that's like the main storyline, right? One of the main storylines.
I want one last thing, because in that Charles and Professor scene, because this one I wanted to jump out of my seat and start. Well, I damn near almost did jump out of my seat and start screaming at it. It's the culmination of it when Charles is telling him his name. And it goes back to what we talked about before in these episodes, and this has come up, and I said this before, and that's like I said, man, how Bo of the X-Men team and Al Ewing and Hickman and a lot of them were coming, especially Al Ewing, really. It's really Al Ewing with his take on Magneto and also some other writers who, of course, all the comic writers, but how they all came to the same conclusion. And that's basically Bo just being a super fan of the comics while writing this and knowing the history of Magneto. And this is what Magneto is. Magneto is a man of many names and many personalities, and he always has to fight and choose between these personalities because the one that he starts with is just a straight up monster. There's no, there ain't even really no, like, when Magneto's first introduced as black and white, he's not even the Malcolm X analog that we know and love today. He is just a monster, straight up killing niggas on sight. Everyone dies. He's just a typical comic book villain. And then later on, Chris Claremont comes and refines him and starts writing the Magneto that we know and love, where he becomes this nuanced character. He introduces the idea that he was in the concentration camps. As we see, they made sure to note that in the when you see, I don't even know we mentioned this, on Magneto's arm, you see the tattoos from the concentration camps. Which
Yeah,
was
we saw that a few times.
Yep. And so that's like some real life shit. When I was a kid, I actually met a concentration camp survivor, and they showed me those tattoos on their arm. That shit was,
That's insane. Do you have more to say about Magneto,
no,
Professor X?
yes, I do, because this is the main point of this. It's like the man of many names, right? And when he's telling him his name, the Magneto's first introduction, he says, "Men call me Magneto." You know what I mean? And it's that, like, don't fuck around with me. This is who I am. And so when Professor X is like, we need, you wanted it one way, it's like the Wires. You want it one way, but it's the other way. We don't need Eric right now. We don't need Magnus right now. We need Magneto. And that's when I fucking almost, the flip the table meme, jump out your seat, tear the TV off the wall, like, and then that nigga jumps up and saves the day and does what he needs to do.
He said, they used to call me Crazy Joe, now they call me Batman.
Ooh.
He went,
put the locks on the door, nigga. School is in session, nigga.
Oh, and I realized I said Timothy De La
Put
Ghetto
the chains on the door.
Listen, I said Timothy De La Ghetto earlier. I meant Raphael De La Ghetto. Just wanted to make that correction.
Put the
Fresh
chains
Prince
on the
style.
door, nigga. Yeah. Ooh, like that's when I lost it. Like, I mean, I was losing this whole episode, I've been losing this whole season, but that was just like, I'm such a Magneto super fan, and that just got him to his core, got Professor to his core.
And
let's talk about let's talk about the other thing that got to his core this episode. My man Scott Stunners.
Wait. Just wait a minute. But before I know we'll detour. I know we will detour back to Magneto Professor X, but before we leave them, I just want to add on to what you're saying about him, what's in the name, and the power of your name. And once again, going back, and this is my reach, okay? I know this may not have nothing to do with what Bo intended.
Go ahead. I already know you're gonna go ahead, because it ain't.
Your name is your name. Your name is your power. Your name is your lineage. Your name is your personhood. Okay, whether it's your children, names you were born with, the name that you decided to take on, all this other stuff. When Magneto says, "Oh, I know who you are, and I know who I am," that power and knowing, and the fact that shit woke him the fuck up. When we talk about levels, once again, the levels, and that unlocked him once again. It knocked him out of his own mind. And that's just more of what we keep saying about when it comes to knowing thyself, knowing yourself, and knocking yourself out of your own restraints. Same thing happened with Storm this series. The adversary, after the conversation, it was like, you was the only, at the end of the day, you were holding yourself back. Your powers were never left you. You held yourself down.
And beyond that, like Bo pointed out, her powers aren't the source of her power. Her powers is the source of her self-belief in herself. As she then tells Jean, when like Jean's like, "You'll be killed like sister." Nah, it ain't about these powers. It's about that we believe in each other beyond everything.
And I know we sound like church right now. I hear the organs in the background.
Man, listen, I'm getting the
I
chills.
feel like we in church.
No, and that's the thing. It's like you weren't making a reach at all, and Bo definitely intended that because,
Okay.
and it's something that you mentioned in your notes about Sunspot that he finally stopped using his slave name, and this has come up in the comics. The mutants refer to their like code names as their mutant name and not their human name, which is the name they were given at birth. And it's just like you said, this is the second time now that I've referenced Marlo from The Wire in this episode, because Marlo's famous for you wanted it that way, but it's the other way. And his other famous one, as I use as my drop, is my name is my name. And my name is in the streets, is what that leads to. 'Cause my name is my name. And that conversation in The Wire comes from Marlo being locked up in prison and finding out that people in the streets are saying, oh, Marlo gone soft. And he's like, and when his lieutenants tell him this, who are in the streets, and he's like, nigga, y'all ain't murked them niggas? Like, my name is my name.
My name has weight. My name holds water.
Like, he's like, my name is in the streets. Niggas is saying my name without being dead. That don't happen. Like, so what is going on in this life? And that's what Magneto is about, like you said. And like, we all know, like we go by our chosen whatever. Like my chosen name is BenHaMeen, and it holds weight. What I mean? We choose these names because they hold power and weight. Fact. Magneto, men call me
Toby
Magneto.
versus Kunta Kinte.
There it is. You know what I mean? Like, I ain't going by that name. Sunspot said I ain't going by Roberto no more, nigga. My name is Sunspot.
I'm so happy he figured it out. So.
Yeah.
Welcome to the present, my dear.
Welcome to the clan. That nigga finally gonna get an introduction shot in the next season.
And and again, I know we're jumping a little bit. Let me also say, I'm so glad he made mention, because I fucking said that in the last episode, that Sunspot made mention. I know I've only been using my powers for like 2 seconds. Thank you, nigga. As long as you say what it is, appreciate you.
And the nigga flying in space in this episode. Like,
it's like, I mean, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. You went right into your boy Scott Summers, okay?
Stunners. Put some respect on that man's name.
I said this on IG and I said this on Twitter. I don't hate Scott no more.
How could you ever?
X-Men 97 turned it around for me. I'm also not gonna sit here and be like, oh, I'm gonna be his cheerleader, because I'm not.
I will.
How you can. However, I don't dislike the nigga anymore. His build up to this, and the fact that he came to the terms of his own fuck shit, that's what made me like him. Especially the last episode where I had actually verbalized that, I don't, I feel him, and I actually was fucking with him when he read Professor X for Filth. And then even in this episode, especially when he was just like atoning for, he was like, you know what? I was fucked up too. I did some shit that I shouldn't have fucking done. And then when he finally really let go, and yes, it was in the heat of battle, but I saw the let go. Yes. I saw the just put your all into it and let me see you, nigga. Once I seen that, I said, okay, I fuck with this man.
Like I told you, like when, that nigga, one of my favorite panels ever is when that shit's just all red. Because that nigga just, lets loose.
Yes. Yeah. And on the obvious stuff, yes, that fight scene went crazy. The way that they animate the move sets and the power levels and the fighting aspects and the strategy behind the fighting. And once again, seeing the characters do things with their power that you may have not seen done before, or just building up of what you've seen all season. Yep. The full red when he was just like, don't ever touch my family again, and mans with him. And then at the end, when he just took off the shades altogether, was like blasting. That nigga snapped. And I wanted to also mention, this is also an Easter egg for him. In that moveset he did, you did it in the beginning of the show, Ben, when you cross your arms. That's actually an actual moveset from Marvel vs. Capcom. Yep. Which, once again, when we said that this is a joint effort between many people, including Bo DeMaio and everybody there, that was somebody else who...
That was one of the animators.
Right, one of the animators who said, hey, yo, you should do this.
Yep. Huge Marvel vs. Capcom fan. And I mean, who isn't? Like, that's just one of the greatest video games of all time. Like, and that's what we've talked about, it's just how they've been using all these different sources to create this version. But I just, again and again, cannot get over how true it is to the comics and how good it is. Like, this is just one little Easter egg. And I we put this on the For All Nerds account on Twitter, but I don't know if anyone's ever done the Days of Futures Past cover, when they show with Forge, right? Well, we'll get to that a little later, but that's another little Easter egg we'll get to at the end of this. But
Okay.
yeah, because I really want to just talk about Scott for a second.
Yeah, let's talk about Scott.
How motherfucking amazing that nigga is. Like,
my man doing his speed runner costume, like speed skating costume.
The way he's moving,
and he's moving
using his
like a fucking speed
blast,
skater.
to move himself
Come
around the
on.
room. And then, like you said, the conversation with Gene, Cable, and Scott was as beautifully written to me as anything else. Cable talked about, this is one of those endings, foreshadowing the ending of the episode.
And you mentioned this actual scene was out of what you told, maybe it was 2 or 3 episodes back or maybe even more, when we were talking about how when Scott and Gene were outside the mansion in front of the lake and Gene was floating in the water and shit like that, and how you mentioned how in the comics they had a conversation where she held back his optic blast, and that's part of like how they ended up falling in love and all that stuff. So then they did it in this finale episode where he was like, yo, you got my eyes, talking to Cable. And then for her to take it off the glasses and stop the optic blast, and for him to be able to see his little pretty brown eyes. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. Come on. Yeah. And you could see the love, and you could see Cable finally like accepting Gene.
And it's all y'all, finally, like fully accepting it. Even in the earlier moment, what he says when he's down for the count, when she summons up the Phoenix, my man says, I think you need to understand what time is telling you about my mom.
My mom. And he's talking to that lady floating over there. My mother.
Yeah. It's about to put that hurt on you. And that's, a direct flip from the last episode when he says, my real mother was a telekinetic marvel. It didn't pass, it comes right to me too. But in this episode, he knows, that they're both his mother in a way.
They're essentially one and the same, but
yeah.
I understand what he's been through. He's been through a lot. I don't fault Cable for none of that.
And we're gonna see a lot more of that in the next season. What Cable is
yeah,
and so we'll see all that.
We're gonna talk about that.
The Phoenix and Jean Grey. They've been
teasing that. They've been teasing that since the opening credits of episode 1, all season long, through dialogue, through imagery. The Phoenix, the Phoenix, the Phoenix, the Phoenix. And then finally, when it matters the most, she appears. Yeah. Or it appears, because it's an entity. It appears.
Yep. Does some business, bounces, and leaves Gene to get served. Pretty typical.
But it did what it needed to do when it needed to do it.
Yeah, but at the same time,
save Cable from save all of them, really.
But 5 more minutes of the Phoenix would have really wrapped this episode up pretty quick.
It would have been helpful, but then that would have been the cheat code, and there would have been no ending like the way we wanted. And that's okay that they did it the way they did, because it ended up turning Sinister into a California raisin, and I fuck with that.
That was amazing.
That was funny.
Yeah. Funny, sad.
Funny. My face! Not this time.
It was like Mum Ra, when Mum Ra used to, for Thundercat fans, when Mum Ra used to be the big muscle nigga, and then he get foiled every episode and turned back into Mum Ra, and be all like the little weak nigga.
Your voice acting is hilarious.
You don't know Mum Ra, right? You do know Mum Ra.
I vaguely.
Okay, well, Mum Ra is the villain of Thundercats, and he's a mummy because he's Mum Ra. And normally he's this frail little nigga, and then he would say some magic spell or something and it turned into this big bulk, swole ass diesel nigga. And then Lionel would serve that nigga and he would turn back into Mum Ra,
Yeah. Also staying within the Scott Gene Cable trifecta, at the end, when the asteroid M gets blipped somewhere, blipped is a good word. Yep. And the teams actually all get separated, right? We do see Scott and Gene get yeeted to the future. And they end up with Mother Ascani and the Ascani tribe. You guys to talk about that.
My girl.
You guys, and the significance, and I noticed, I read this, but the significance of Ascani, her Mother Ascani herself. And when they had the whole intro, a little redhead boy popped out, and it was like talking about he's Nathaniel. Talk about,
Yeah.
I don't feel no harm coming from these two, meaning he's telekinetic and all this, whatever, or feelings. What's going on, Ben?
Telepathic. All right.
What's going on, Ben?
Well, long story short, this is basically, and we'll have to do this. We need to also just tie it into all the whole ending of the episode, because basically the ending of the episode on all three fronts is tying into the next season and revealing the big bad or the big antagonist, I guess you'll say, because my man is not really a bad in the literal sense, just like Magneto. Apocalypse. And the big foreshadowing in this episode is when Rogue and Bastion are fighting on the moon in what is known, and I love that they don't. It's all right. This is a two-pronged thing, right?
Answering the question.
No, we'll get back to the question, but I just want to talk about the foreshadowing and then how this show doesn't explain shit unless you've watched earlier or you know it already, and it's just like either go figure it out or just accept that some really cool shit is happening. Because Rogue and Bastion are fighting on the moon, and Rogue should be dead. But where they're fighting on the moon is the blue area of the moon, which in the comics is where Jean Grey gets turned into Phoenix because she gets blasted there. And the blue area of the moon is also the home of the Inhumans. And it has an atmosphere that is breathable to humans and Inhumans.
Gotcha. Because I was going to ask how the hell did she survive when we started talking about Rogue, but go ahead.
That's why. And the blue area is also where Apocalypse, I think, at one point has a base or something, which is why you see that statue in the background, and Rogue sees it when she lands. Yeah, Rogue looks over like, because she knows what that is, and it's the face of Apocalypse. So that's the big foreshadowing. And then we get to the end of the episode where they're yeeted into the future, and the mother of Scrawny and young Nathaniel walk up. Young Nathaniel is Cable. Remember earlier, Cable got yeeted to the future.
Right.
This is the future he got yeeted to. This is him years later as he's grown up a bit.
And he's only like maybe a teenager or preteen.
He's a teenager, yeah.
Okay.
So
he's young.
Mad young. And this comes from a comic series, The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, where they get yeeted to the future and raise their son. The other person in this last scene is Mother Ascani, who is my girl, one of my favorite characters. Mother Ascani is an older version of Rachel Summers, who in the comics is the daughter of Scott and Jean from basically an alternate timeline.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the most fucked up family tree. Scott Summers' family tree.
Oh, it gets worse.
We like this. We like Tetris blocks. It's all over.
We talked about Vulcan being introduced earlier in this season, and Vulcan being introduced and having not a word to say, but that is Scott's other brother. Scott also has another brother, Havoc, and might have yet one more, but it's really at this point, it's as confirmed, it's Vulcan, Havoc, Scott, Rachel being the alternate timeline kid, Cable being another timeline kid, Jean and Madeline, his two clone wives. His father abandoned him to go be
clone wives.
Yeah, his father abandoned him to be a space pirate. His mom's dead. I think that's it.
Okay.
Cable later has an adopted daughter.
Jesus.
Who Bishop chases through space trying to kill. Space and time.
One thing I also wanted to add on about why I also appreciated Scott was the fact that when I was like, he acknowledges his wrongdoing, specifically when he was just like, I should have told your ass goodbye. Remember, I was harping on that.
Yes.
When I was just like, is it Uchiwali's woman? Like, I'm like, nigga, this is probably the last time you could see this guy.
Hurt people. He
said as much.
I did the same thing my father did to me. My space pirate father abandoned me to go be a space pirate and frolic with his space pirate father dates a woman who's like a humanoid skunk. You know, it happens.
Excuse me?
Hey, he's a space pirate. Things happen.
Okay.
Back to the end of the episode. The other ending.
Wait.
Yeah. I mean,
One
Mother
question.
Ascani. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, you mentioned the Ascani and all that stuff. Cool. Thank you for the background.
Oh, the Ascani clan. What that is?
We can talk about that, but that's not the question I'm gonna have.
Okay.
I was gonna ask. We have this version of Nathaniel.
Mm-hmm.
Where is our Cable that we've been fucking with? Where'd he go?
Still in the past. Remember?
So he's still in the.
Remember, Bishop comes to get him.
Bishop came to get Forge.
Oh, true indeed. Well, they'll have to get Cable too.
Okay, and on Forge's wall, it said Cable was AWOL. If I'm not mistaken.
Well, he probably disappeared somewhere into the time stream himself.
Okay, and that was just a question, and about what happened. And also on Cable's note, I had also
This ain't
asked,
Back to the Future right now. Like Cable ain't gonna disappear because they fucking with his, his teenage
well,
version.
not disappeared, just
Yeah.
where did he go? I know everyone got scattered, but where,
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
we'll find out. And then
Yep.
also on the Cable front, I had asked this myself, like when he was first appeared about during the whole Genosha shit, I was like, how many times does this nigga actually go back?
Oh.
For Sinister to force him to say 200 times. I fell to my knees. I said, what?
Nigga,
He
watching
tried
your
200
mom,
times to stop Genosha.
watching your mom die in front of you 200
200
times.
times, my guy. It's
And you're right there. And
you're
can
right
do
there every
nothing.
time. And you get pulled out
And you can do
every
nothing.
single time.
You can do nothing to save her every time.
But then you would think that means you thought of 200 different ways to potentially make this work. Because you were like, okay, a method 52 didn't work. Method 146 gotta work. Like he just kept going.
And he's seen it happen, so it ain't just like that one time that we saw. There are times when he's there and sees Genosha get blown the fuck up, his mom get blown up, everything. So he sees all the tragedy, and then he can't stop it.
That's insane. That's insane.
Yeah.
If you want to say something about the Scotty clan, please go ahead, and then we could talk about the other side of this.
Well, that's
everyone
just
got
pretty
thrown into
like
the
their
future.
name. The Scotty clan is just off of Rachel Summers having been a time traveler herself and founds the Astronomy clan, which basically carries on the name of the X-Men, which was another foreshadowing when he's like, all those people are always telling me, these rebels telling me a rumor,
telling me the stories of the X-Men, yeah.
Is his parents. But Nathan doesn't notice in the future. Like
he realizes that when he had the conversation with them.
Yeah, but in the comics, he didn't like as a kid, they hide who they are from him.
Got it.
Yeah, so they don't, they help raise him, but they don't tell him where your actual parents.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure how to do it in the show, but that's how it goes down in the comics. And that's also why his name is Nathan Dayspring, which is like Summers, Nathan.
Oh, that was the name he took on Dayscream, you said?
Dayspring.
Dayspring, okay.
Yeah.
Dayscream is a fire name, but
yeah,
Dayspring. Okay.
Yeah, no, Dayspring is his name. Nathan Dayspring.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's the other side of where the rest of the team, most, not all, of the team gets sent to. We got Beast, Professor X, Nightcrawler, Rogue.
Oh yeah, one last thing about that future. Apocalypse is running things.
Which one? About the Ascani future?
Yeah, where the Ascani are at.
Okay,
running things.
So Apocalypse specifically is running things.
Running things, and it's all bad for everyone else. Like it's Mad Max type situation where this nigga's in control and everything. Everybody else is suffering bad.
Damn.
And
now
super bad.
Is the other side where the rest of the team, minus Storm, where the fuck is Storm, gets yeeted to the past, to the Egyptian times, where, as mentioned, Nightcrawler, Rogue, Professor X, Beast pull up on Ensabanur.
Was Morph there? What happened to Morph and Wolverine too?
I was going to ask you that. I don't remember if Morph is there.
I don't think so, because Wolverine ain't there. So
either.
I think Morph is with Wolverine, wherever they are.
Probably.
Yeah.
Because they were with each other when the ship, he was doing his best Jean Grey.
And where was Storm when the ship got yeeted?
Storm was out there with she was fighting with she was with Forge, right? Didn't she?
No, she was talking to Forge.
She was talking
Forge tells
to
her that, you're not going to be able to make it back. Sunspot and Jubilee are on the ground. And
so Storm is on the ground with Forge?
No. Storm does not get to the ground before the ship gets yeeted.
Okay, so either way, where the fuck is Storm?
Good question. I don't have any answer from the comics, honestly. I don't know.
Right. So the people who we have named, again, Nightcrawler, Rogue, Professor X, and Beast, they are in the past in Egypt, and they pull up on Ensabanur.
And where's Magneto? Magneto's there too.
Magneto's there too.
Yep.
Thank you. Magneto's there. And they pull up on him, and they actually save him from whoever was beefing with him.
Yeah, some other Egyptians who were trying to work him out.
And he introduces himself, and then you see the blue hieroglyphic shits on his face, and you're just like, oh shit.
And they all recognize. They all know who they're dealing with as well.
Know.
That's why Beast says, wowzers, or whatever he says. Great. And Rogue and Magneto share a look, and they know. And that's Ensabanur, Ensabanur is the first name of Apocalypse, and he is, in Marvel history, the first mutant. He was born in Egyptian times and lives forever. His powers are quite tremendous and allow him to live for thousands of years up into the future where we meet him. And so Apocalypse, like we said before, will be a lot of the problems that the X-Men deal with in the next season. because they're dealing with him in the future. They're dealing with his young version in the past. And then in present day, in the mid-credit scene, we see Apocalypse again. And the thing is, if you go back to the original series, Apocalypse was featured super heavily. So anyone from who watches the original
He
series
was.
knows this character and knows a lot of his history as well. So all this ain't new to him. But we see Apocalypse in the ashes of Genosha talking about so much death, my children, because of Apocalypse considers the entire mutant race to be his children. He's constantly saying the strong survive and we need to be stronger. Why gets finally was revealed in the recent House of X series, which really expanded his character even more. He's another one of my favorite characters in comics, and he's another character that started off as just a prototypical "Rah, I'm Apocalypse, all you die," type villain, and then turned into this really super complex, super really just well-rounded character. Insabanur is one of my favorite characters in X-Men mythology.
His
So
name
it's
is fire.
so fire, Insabanur. And then in House of X, he changes his name to Unpronounceable Symbol, like he's Prince.
Like Prince.
Yeah.
The
Like
artist
he's
formerly known as
yeah, because
Insabanur.
he's like, I can't even speak that language. I have to have a Krakoan name. And so my name is, it was a Krakoan
I don't go by
symbol.
my slave name no more.
Yeah, and I'm not
Got it.
Apocalypse. Even in that, he grows where he's like, I'm not Apocalypse anymore. I'm not preparing y'all for that. Now my name is Revelation because I'm bringing life and strength.
I like
I
that.
am the light. I'm not the death.
not the
I
death.
am the light. Yeah.
Speaking of death, when we do see
Yes.
Apocalypse in that mid-credit scene,
Mm.
he is holding a Queen of Hearts card, which
It's
is
one of
Gambit's
Gambit's.
card. And he pulled it out from the dirt. And apparently he's on what's supposed to be modern day Genosha.
Genosha, and he's standing in ashes. So he says, "So much death, my children," as he pulls up Gambit's card, which was one of the big moments and a big foreshadowing hint, as a lot of people have guessed all season that
You guessed it.
because it's happened in the comics, so this is not like a big thing. Gambit at one point in the comics became one of Apocalypse's horsemen of death. And Wolverine in the comics also became a horseman of death, but that was at a different time. But judging from the way this is going, I'm assuming that Wolverine is still in the present and will get turned into his horseman of war. Or wherever he is. He might be in the past too.
Whatever.
And Apocalypse might turn him to a horseman of war then, and that might be the way they restore his adamantium to his bones.
Not him, but that's shit be happening with Wolverine, okay? But not my
But
nigga
with
Gambit.
Gambit, it's really worse.
Not my nigga Gambit. Not again.
Yeah, it ain't like this is, Gambit's back.
No, it ain't gonna be like that. Oh,
No,
not,
this is
not again.
When they say a horseman of death, they mean of death. He is slinging death wherever he goes, and yeah. Well, true indeed, yeah, because if you slinging death, it ain't, some people might like that.
Oh my gosh. No, not my nigga Gambit. Listen. Well, like I said, Rogue was there, and so was Nightcrawler. And I wanna make mention about Rogue and her she did her big one once again in this episode when she fucking gave the 10-piece to Bastion and said his name was Gambit. Remember it. Screaming, crying, throwing up. When I said, say that, bitch, say that. Like, when I go, I want you to be Rogue, okay? Be Rogue for me, okay? Hold my name up like that and let people know what the fuck it was when they talking about my name. You know what I'm saying? When they talking about me, let them not forget. Remember it, okay? Shit. That shit was crazy. And then went in on him and then, yes, it didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, but she went in on him nonetheless.
I mean, it turned out the way we needed it to.
We needed it to.
Yeah, it definitely turned out the way we needed it to. And let's talk about that, because that was the other big moment of this episode is Cyclops accepting that they can't fight Bastion because you cannot fight the future. And that's what Bastion represents. And that was yet another moment that has really come up a lot in the comments lately. We've discussed this on earlier episodes, is that the X-Men are fighting a two-pronged war. Like, they're fighting against humans' mistrust and fear of them, of the future. And at the same time, they're fighting against machines who are evolving to the rate that they will replace humans and mutants.
Everybody.
Because they also, in the current comics, have this other species, post-human, they're dealing with. And the machines are like, well, that's cool, but all y'all niggas can go.
That's cool. But Bastion is the Borg. So he's like, all right,
Yeah.
that's cool. You saw how even the Cable's arm, the way he absorbed that shit and became
Super Bastion.
Archangel Super Saiyan 5. Like, what the fuck, Super Bastion, as you call
I
him?
wanted to ask Bo on Twitter, was that a shout out to the comic villain Null? There's a villain in Spider-Man lore right now called Null, who's basically the god of the symbiotes. And Null has a red chest like that. He has the red Spider-Man, Venom emblem on his chest.
Mm-hmm.
And then he grows these wings like that and is always flying around. And that's when Venom started getting wings, but he saw Null with them. Yeah, all that type of shit. So I was like, oh, he doing the Null move when he did that.
Right.
And also he did the wop, wop, wop on Cable.
When Scott...
Not fuck him up.
Right. When Scott was like, yo, we can't fight it. And he was just trying to be like, essentially trying to save Bastion. I was just like, I had a little funny feeling like, okay, I don't know if I like this, but it doesn't matter. Because then Bastion did something funny and went into the light.
Nigga yeeted himself.
We went into the light like a fucking moth. And I said, wait a minute. Did he kill himself? Or I don't think he's dead, but what happened?
I'm not 100% sure, but once again, okay, House of X has been out enough time where I do believe they could be referencing that again in this series. In the first issue, or one of the first issues of House of X, a character says, "What's inside of a black hole? I know." And then they open up a black hole in front of people and all of them get sucked into it.
Damn.
And that character later gets transported through time through the black hole. So we see a black hole type situation operating at the gravity core, in his ship. When the gravity core collapses, everything starts to get sucked into it like a black hole situation. And Bastion, I love the smirk. That was my moment. That nigga Stride's like, come on, Bastion, come on. Right.
Like, he was
sucks his teeth on this nigga like,
he was like, you are such a lame.
Yeah.
And staying on the whole Bastion front, he's
losers.
He's very much like everyone's a loser, but also he's funny. And what I say what the MCU has had a problem with when we talk about the live action, critical villain or main guy, whatever you want to call him, antagonist, whatever, maybe protagonist, that is crucial and critical to the story that you care about or even have any type of feeling towards. You had that with Bastion, whether you hated him or loved him, you felt something about that. And he was a good villain, and the voice acting was so good too. And even him saying the smirk, like you said, and then when he said, because I said the same thing, Jubilee popped out thinking she was going to go hit him with the streamers. And he said, what are you going to do? 4th of July me to death? If I had not said that myself 50 million times, for him to say that on the show, I was like, wow.
And Jubilee's retort was great. Like, I ain't heard that a million times. Right. Come on.
It was just the back and forth and all that. It was amazingly done. And
impeccable.
It was that's a great word. It was impeccable.
Yeah. Impeccable. Back to that, I do believe that Bastion will return next season as he got sucked into the black hole, which will time travel him to one of these eras that the X-Men are in, or some type of shit like that,
Who, before I do want to get to this, maybe 3 more people, but can you explain how or who or how Asteroid M got the whole thing yeeted like that in the first place, or blipped like that in the first place?
No.
What was it because, like you said, the thing
No, Bishop explains that. It is somebody yeeting the whole thing.
It is somebody doing that.
Space. Yeah.
Okay.
Or maybe it is the thing yeeting itself
like
through time
imploded
and space,
on itself, so it's
and
just
all of
because it's a particle accelerator. So
yeah,
the engine.
It might have imploded on itself, but the X-Men and other people were yeeted out of there before it imploded.
Oh, so I think that's okay, I hear what you're saying.
Or maybe the whole thing got yeeted. We don't know yet.
And then they got thrown to cast across the multiverse,
time and space,
timelines and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. We did talk about Sunspot a little bit, Jubilee a little bit, them being back together. Okay, cute. Yeah. I had a question which Bo DeMaio actually already answered, and you answered one of the other questions when I was just like, how the fuck was Rogue fighting in space? Mm-hmm. Technically, she was in that blue area of the moon, which has its own atmosphere and all that other stuff. Mm-hmm. Jubilee was also fighting in space, and I said, lower how?
Atmosphere.
Bo said no, that was just when they were in really high altitude, which can, depending on your angle, appear that you're in space, but she wasn't actually in space. So I was like, all right, fine.
I mean, if you want to, start talking about shit like that, you really have to talk about the distance Rogue traveled from the asteroid M to the moon for it to be the size in that shot. I mean, it was pretty close, but I don't know, relativity
Wasn't
and all.
that close, right?
Yeah, space is huge, fam.
Yeah.
So, like that.
It's just a question. It's not a complaint. It was just a
but
question.
that's, comic books, they're
Comic
magical.
books, right.
So, yeah.
My man Beast, I just thought it was cool. He ghetto rigged the Sentinel and used that as a mech, and did the whole Trojan horse thing. Like, I thought that was cute.
Yep.
I
That
don't know.
was
I
also
feel like,
a callback to the comments where this dude, one of the mutants, has like the power to relate to this Sentinel and rides inside it in the same way.
Oh, okay, cute, very cute. What else did we got? Oh, and I guess I don't know if you wanted to talk about these people, but I want to talk about a lot of the cameos.
If I just said, yeah. I think you missed one in the note. I mean, there's a few. I think.
Well, I added more. I don't know.
Okay,
please add. So all the cameos that I didn't mention, I said.
Yep, go ahead.
Daredevil, Cloak and Dagger, Peter Parker and Mary Jane, MJ. I said that samurai nigga because I couldn't remember the name.
The nigga Silver Samurai is still standing on the building.
Silver Samurai. He hasn't moved. Is it the he? She?
Yeah, it's a he. Silver Samurai.
He has not moved since we see him appear like 4 episodes ago.
I think that was also intentional to show that nigga is just, that's that G of that nigga. Like that nigga just waiting for the drama. Okay. Don't bring it here.
Not waiting for the drama. And I thought he had a more complicated name, but it's just Silver Samurai.
I wish a nigga would. That should be over the Silver Samurai shot.
Okay. Captain America and Iron Man. Now I saw and at first I was like, they're not doing shit, but then also somebody was like, well, the Avengers be doing stuff on the side that you don't know about, which is true.
Yes.
And they was in the White House or the bunker with President Kelly.
Yep.
We seen King T'Chaka. King T'Chaka, as well as Dora Milaje. I don't know if anyone else from Black Panther was up in that view screen or that shot. We seen Doctor Strange performing surgery even in the dark with the candles, doing his as Chico Leo would say, your finger jammies, getting that done. Who else? Is there anybody else that I missed?
Oh yeah. Okay. During a lot of the stuff, we saw Alpha Flight, and one of them we see Alpha Flight standing with Psylocke, and
Psylocke. That whole situation. Psylocke. Yeah.
And Alpha Flight. Morph not only transforms into Mr. Fantastic, he also transforms into one of our favorites, Sauron. I just want to turn the world into dinosaurs.
I didn't realize. I saw Mr. Fantastic, but I didn't know he did that. That's your favorite.
That's everyone's favorite.
For those who don't know this story, real quick.
There's a famous panel where Spider-Man is talking to Sauron. Sauron is a mutant who can turn into a dinosaur human.
A pterodactyl.
A pterodactyl. You see Morph turn into him when he needs to fly for a second in this episode. Very quick. He's a green pterodactyl man. And Spider-Man is talking to him like, you're brilliant, because he's a brilliant scientist. And he's like, you're a brilliant scientist. You could cure cancer. And Sauron says, I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn the world into dinosaurs.
One track minded, 100%. You got it. That's why at that point you can't say nothing to him. You got it.
That's what you call focus, nigga. Like this nigga. Spider-Man's like, why do you want to turn the world into dinosaurs? You could cure cancer. And he's like, I don't want to cure cancer, nigga. I want to turn the world into dinosaurs.
This is less of a cameo and more of a character return. Bishop came back, as we called it. We was like, he's the only one who we haven't seen all this time.
And before we get to Bishop, because that wall is very important. Yeah, and we mentioned Polaris. We mentioned Quick and Scarlet Witch. Then
you want to talk about the cover that was the ode to that cover.
Yep. In the Bishop scene, when he comes in to collect Forge to go look for the mutants, which is also hilarious because he said, we ain't been through the X-Men are dead. This ain't our first rodeo. Which is fucking comedy because the X-Men are always dead in the comics. Dead.
They're always dying and coming back. They're always.
And it points the whole team is always presumed dead. Like, that was a famous one when they get sucked into the Siege Perilous that I've talked about in earlier episodes, a magic portal, basically. And this building explodes, and the whole world thinks they did. Because everybody sees them going to the building, and then the building blows up. And so they're like, okay, them niggas dead. They don't come out the building. There ain't no survivors. Nobody finds the bodies. Them niggas dead. And so the whole world think they dead. And then, there's a hunt for the X-Men. So it's another hunt for the X-Men. But the wall that Forge is looking to before Bishop shows up features a lot of faces. And there's bars across them. Some say deceased. Some say missing. Scarlet Witch, hilariously, for some reason, said in
Off-world.
space, off-world,
And so does Quicksilver's. This
Which-
Quicksilver one, it says off-world.
which probably people assume means that they are with the Avengers at this time and doing something off-world. So that's probably that. But that wall is a homage to X-Men. It's one something, I'm not sure, but it's a famous cover by John Byrne. It's been duplicated hundreds of times at this point, but it's from their Days of Future Past storyline when they first showed this ill future where it's all dark, the Sentinels have taken over, and most of the X-Men have been killed or apprehended by the Sentinels. And so the cover features Wolverine and an older Kitty Pryde, Shadowcat, who's also one of the faces on that, who will probably show up next season. I can't wait. Love Kitty Pryde.
And was in the pilot episode of the OG X-Men series.
Yep. And then never really showed up. I think she was in one episode, maybe in like the regular series as well, but not many, if any. I'm not sure. But she was in that pilot, and I don't know if they ever brought her back. But Kitty Pryde will return. But anyway, it's an older Wolverine and an older Kitty Pryde in a spotlight, like the Sentinels had a spotlight on them. And behind them is this wall. So imagine being a comic book reader. You're reading one issue, the X-Men are in present day, everything's fine and dandy. And then you pick up, some tragic shit that just happened. It was like Dark Phoenix and all that. Yeah, it's always tragic shit happened, but it's modern day fine. And then you go into your comic store and you see the next issue, and this old ass Wolverine and an old ass Kitty Pryde. And then behind them, most of the X-Men are dead or apprehended. It's one of the most classic comic covers of all time. And like I said, I don't really remember, even in Days of Future Past, the show, them ever really doing, the movie, them doing that cover.
I don't know.
Yeah, and it's like
recall.
so iconic that when I tell you, pretty much every other comic, there's probably a Superman cover with that image behind him, with some people on the wall.
Didn't they do that in Endgame or Infinity War? Remember, like...
Well, he was pulling up
similar
names. Yeah, similar.
Yeah, and it was a hologram where they were showing like
definitely an homage there, but yeah, just have that wall and to do it on an X-Men property. I don't feel like it's been done, and that's crazy to me. It's one of those like moments. It's just like how when the Flash TV show was on the CW when it first started, they were murdering it because they were doing moments, cooking with grease, because it was like you saw things. I remember when they did this Flash cover where the two Flashes are running to save this woman. And it's an old ass cover, but it's a classic Flash cover. And they do it, and it's like they had the two Flashes start running forward to save this woman. And you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
They did the cover. Like just out of nowhere. It was so well done the way they did that. And this is how this show is doing. We talked about it. Like, it's impeccable. Because it's like, damn, they just did the cover right there. Boom. Did the moment. You know what's going down if you're an X-Men fan. And if you're not an X-Men fan and you see that image, that's such an iconic
it's still
image.
An iconic image.
And it fucks your head up because like, damn, all these niggas is dead or they missing. Oh, shit, he's in space. Oh, fuck, what are they going to do now? Next season, nigga. Wait.
Next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
Very, very Dragon Ball Z-ish.
Very Dragon Ball Z-ish. Yeah.
And in terms of Easter eggs, you mentioned a piece of it earlier. That Magneto's files, top secret file that President Kelly is holding and reads and flipping through. There are actually an ode to Sir Ian McKellen, Michael Fassbender, and David Hemblin. Sir Ian McKellen, as y'all know or should know, was the first, at least in the Fox live action ones, it was the first person playing Magneto. Then Michael Fassbender, when they was doing the younger Days of Future Past version type stuff, he came in, and then David Hemblin was the voice actor in the original series. So. And you'll see it, like, if you look at Magneto's file, like, if you pause that scene, that frame, under his picture, you'll see it say his names, Magneto's names, and it says Eric Magnus Leshner, and then you'll see, like, Ian,
children,
like, the first names, like, and you'll see, like, pieces of their names there, like, it says Michael, David, Ian, some shit like that. Then it says children and names, it mentions Polaris, but as you sense, Polaris is blacked out, you just see the letter P. It mentions Scarlet Witch, mentions Pietro.
Yep.
It's the love and care and dedication that has been placed into X-Men 97 is beyond compare.
For long-term listeners, they know how much I love Scarlet Witch, and like I said, it just extends. That whole family it's always the families I think they get me in comics, and so it's like the Summers family is always one of my favorites. Their relationships, and Magneto and his kids, and how he's always fucking with them and not fucking with them. They got the most abusive relationship, and then Polaris always being this lone one who's just out and you never know if she really is his daughter or not, but she's the one who has magnet powers. So yeah, she's his daughter. And recently in the comments, he accepted her. He accepted Scarlet Witch. He accepted Quicksilver back into his life. And it was just like one of my favorite moments, man. I was like, oh, man. Yeah.
Are there any other like Easter eggs or cameos or anything else you wanted to mention? Or connections?
I think we caught all the different cameos that I can remember. We should address the elephant in the room here. A lot of people online were definitely quite upset that T'Challa was not featured.
T'Chaka.
And T'Chaka was featured.
Which doesn't make sense to me because why would T'Challa be featured?
All right, now they do have a legitimate reason, because this is, as Bo has shown and said, and as we see the same Spider-Man and Mary Jane from the animated series that came out in the 90s.
In the 90s.
Which featured T'Challa at point, I'm not sure if he was in that, but he was in another series. Like, people are now saying all those 90s series are this shared universe, right?
Okay.
And because of that, T'Challa was featured in those. So why would his dad be here and not him?
I was thinking the opposite, that it was back in the day. So why would T'Challa be featured?
But this is more, this back in the day, T'Challa was there.
Yeah, but
I get it, but they're mad.
But also, like, as far as I know, Marvel has not strayed from their path of, at least for now, that we're not featuring anything T'Challa.
Well, that's their issue. They're quite upset about that.
I can't be upset about that, bro.
I mean, they are. They, like somebody pointed out, and this one, I have to say, this is the first time, throughout this whole recast of T'Challa, which I've, pretty much been like, recast your mama, because you need to rethink a lot of decisions in your life. Shout out to Janisha F, who coined that phrase. And this is the first time when someone pointed out that Ant-Man has had more screen time than T'Challa, But I also say that just because I hated Ant-Man 3. And so I was like, damn, they really wasted Ant-Man 3, and they could have just recast this nigga. And,
Ant-Man 3 was such a throwaway. But...
Yeah, I know. And it's like, I would have rather they recast T'Challa over that, But that was just my distrust with Ant-Man 3. I would have rather they did anything.
Yeah. I mean,
last point on that.
I just feel like,
go ahead.
Let it happen. Let it happen. Like with the whole T'Challa thing, because y'all going to be complaining about something else later. And I don't know. It's just... We have and I guess it's the same as us. Like, we're going to make critiques, and it's not necessarily, for us, most times it's not necessarily a complaint. We're just making a comment.
Yeah.
To have like full blown, like being upset about it, I'm like, you might want to calm down.
And also, to be full blown upset about it online is only putting more money in Marvel's pockets. Like, that's what people fail to realize. This whole campaign is just drawing attention to Marvel. And mad people will hate watch Marvel, because of it. And they're going to just keep making money. So
if that was enough to make you hate watch or have any negative
affiliation
with X-Men 97, that's insane to me.
Yeah, I know. But that was one. And even with the announcement recently that Ryan Coogler might be considered to direct X-Men, people were highly upset about, the same, weirdos, honestly. And my last point on this, as I've made many times before, is that all these characters, no matter what race, whatever, that no matter what they mean to you, are owned by a company that don't give a fuck. Like, they will do what they do to make money. They will capitalize on making money, so they will make a Black Panther film. But at the same time, they're going to make a Black Panther film that features women, that might not always feature T'Challa, because that's how you make money. You blow up all your characters so that you can maximize the profits. That being said, there's so many Black characters that are owned by Black people that we could and should support. Jimi Hendrix, Purple Haze in stores soon. I don't actually own that one, but
we get it.
Yeah, you're still supporting
Black
a random Black character and Black character.
Black creator behind it.
Yeah, so I just really hate when this kicks up every time, because it's always like, to me, man, Marvel owns this shit, and there's so many other characters that we do own. And yes, T'Challa was the first Black character. Yeah, he's first, he ain't the last. Moving on.
Guys. That's okay. That said, we, like you said, we might have touched on the characters and everything about it. I wanted to make a point that X-Men 97 has been nominated for Breakthrough Drama Series for the 2024 Gotham Awards.
Oh, they all
and reportedly, the Remember episode has been put up as an entry for an Emmy in the Best Animated Series category for the 2024 Primetime Emmys.
That's a tough choice. I guess I'd put Remember It too, though. Because Remember It is a problem.
It's
a fucking problem.
It's
it's
such a turning point and pulls in so much. And you can argue this finale episode is the one. And again, this is all reportedly. This is not complete.
Look, nigga, this shit gonna be up for the Golden Globes, for the Emmys.
And that's why I want to say this has to go up for everything. And also, this is the one where my rant comes in. Y'all meaning these academies and folks and all that, y'all have to respect animation. I'm tired of, one, it always being just relegated to animated, because we're talking about a drama.
Yep.
Regardless of the medium in which it's being presented, it's still a drama. And on top of that, just giving it its due. Like, I feel like there's so many anime series where, like, I forgot, with the exception of one award show, for example, Nimona, which was incredible, was only nominated like one time. I don't even know if it was nominated for Academy Award or what.
It was.
Right. And maybe that was the one that it got. But like the way that there's not enough attention paid to animation, or like I saw this and it could have been a repeat of years of this tweet that keeps coming up. But someone was like, how old were you when you stopped watching cartoons? And one of my friends, shout out to Hood Opulence, he said, stopped. Like that idea that anything animated is childish or reserved for children or is immature, or any of those negative connotations is wild to me.
I think X-Men 97 is going to break, and it already is breaking all those boundaries, because I think this is one of those shows that people are watching and forgetting they're watching a cartoon or watching animation. You know, I think they're just watching it and it's so absorbing and so involving that they're getting involved in these characters, and they're like not even watching it or watching it as a cartoon, or thinking, oh, I'm watching a cartoon, this is something for kids.
You're not thinking
they're watching it and realizing, oh, this is animation for grown folks.
Story.
And it's telling a great story, so I can watch things of this nature. So I think this is going to lead to a revival of more television shows. So we already have a lot of movies that adults can realize, okay, this is an anime movie, like Into the Spider-Verse is pushing that.
Spider-Verse is a perfect example of stories that it does, like, it's just a good story. It's a good movie. It's not about the genre. It's a good movie, or not even genre, the medium. It's a good movie.
And we've talked about this, and I get what you're saying, that like, I think the academies need to pay more respect, but I do feel, because at certain points I was like, yo, Spider-Verse should be nominated for Best Picture. But then I'm like, I only feel that because I was mad at Lost, and I feel like there's only one category for animation. But at the same time, I think animation needs to be respected as its own art form. And I'm sure there are animation awards where they, have different categories, et cetera. And I'm sure they have their own version of the Oscars or whatever.
Yeah.
So, because that's why I feel like it should be, because it is its own medium, and X-Men 97 has shown the joys and the greatness of animation. So I think that needs to be taken into account.
Absolutely. I think it needs both. I think it needs its own space, and to your point, more attention in general. And I love that you mentioned Spider-Verse. Like I said, just good story, regardless of what it is. And it's not relegated to age. A good story is a good story, and whether it's animated or not, in bright colors or not, it's still a good story. You have anime, you have the Western, U.S. animation, you have DC, you have Marvel, you have everything in between, and the fact that you can tell something so compelling, if it's CGI, whatever, the fact that you can tell something so compelling that spans across generations. That's also what I mean about the fact of just giving it more respect, and all of that idea that you can't watch it because you're an adult and just like, fuck out of here.
Well, I think Marvel, Invincible are really leading that charge. To make it, especially as TV series, to make it acceptable for adults to watch an animated TV series that tackles adult themes, and not just adult themes like something like Big Mouth, where it's, kids talk about sex. Yeah, more like where it's an adult story, grown folks business. And I think they're really leading the charge on that. Like, we have the Spider-Man, the early years, coming later this season, that's going to show the Peter Parker MCU before we see him in the MCU. And so can't wait for that. I think they're going to knock that out of the park as well. We have another season of this. People are calling for a whole animated revival of the 90s universe, like that Spider-Man show featuring the Spider-Man we see in this episode, which I'd be down for.
I'd be down for the impact. That's Spider-Man 94.
Nigga, I'll never forget randomly watching that Spider-Man 94 one day. I'm in my house in Houston watching this shit, and Tombstone falls over the edge of a building, And Tombstone, who's coded as black, mind you, falls over the edge of this building. Spider-Man grabs him, and this nigga, Peter Parker, says, he's heavy, he's not my brother. And they are doing the image of he's not heavy, he's my brother.
Mm.
I cried. It's one of the funniest moments. Like for somebody on that team to know that imagery of the two brothers holding one up, you know, from the hood, like everybody know that in the hood. And for somebody in that team to know that and make that joke, that Spider-Man show was ahead of its time, just like the X-Men show was ahead of its time. So I'd be down for a revival of that as well. I'm down for whatever, you know. And we got to talk about Bo. You know, like, I don't know what happened, goddammit, but
just
figure that shit out, y'all.
One more point I wanted to make just about what we were just talking about, just in terms of respecting animation as an art form and then getting its flowers and things like that. I would argue, and you had said something that made me want to make this comment too. I would argue that particularly X-Men, the animated series, has always been some grown folk shit.
Oh, yeah.
It's a soap opera at the end of the day. Those are the stories. And I remember even when this whole thing with 97 started and we were first talking about it, I was like, those were my stories when I was a kid. That Gargoyles, Batman Beyond. That's not some lighthearted, you know, kiki.
Batman,
we're hitting each other with Acme hammers. That's some serious shit going on that may or may not be processing in the, you know, the mind of a 10-year-old or whatever you are, right? Like it hits different, especially when you watch it as an adult. You're like, whoa, that's what they were talking about. Those are the themes that they were exploring. Grown people shit, but really complex themes that are often explored and dissected in the animated art form.
And you talked about Batman Beyond, and that came out of Batman the Animated Series, which
is another one. I was like,
that was the most groundbreaking shit. I remember like running home from school, like, yo, I gotta watch this shit coming on. Like, yo, fam, Batman Animated Series coming on. I'm coming home to watch this shit, and then be like, what the fuck, y'all niggas put this shit on TV?
When you looking back at that stuff, like, damn, that's what they was talking about. You know
I was shocked then. There's an episode where they showed the murder of Bruce Wayne's parents, and it is one of the most like disturbing ways of showing that you could imagine. Blood pours out the barrel of a gun. It was something I'd never thought about, and to this day,
that you remember.
Oh yeah, I was sitting there like,
burned on your brain.
And then to this day, I'm like, and I think that was one. There's one episode they only aired one time at the time because it got so much like people were like, yo, what the fuck? I think that might have been it. And then I've talked about this. The X-Men the Animated Series, the original, had an episode that was the origin of Mr. Sinister that featured Jack the Ripper. Like, and no X-Men. And it took place in the 1600s. These niggas was out of their mind back then too. Like, shout out to them niggas because they was fucking like, fuck it. We doing what we need to do. You know, like, fuck y'all kids. Fuck them kids, straight up. Like, you know, if they get it, they get it. If they don't, they don't. But we gonna do this ill-ass stuff on a Saturday morning, cartoon show. So Bo and the rest of the team is just standing on the shoulders, man. I love to see it.
They stand on the shoulder, and I thought you were gonna say they standing on business.
Both.
X-Men 97, and I know that we're probably gonna have an all-star review of the season at large. X-Men 97 stood on big business. It did its big one. It did a Simone Biles at the end, stuck the landing, got all the gold medals, all that stuff. Just absolute triumph of the animated show. And I salute to Bo and the entire team over there.
Perfection, man. Yeah, I salute to everyone. Salute to Bo. Salute to everyone watching. Salute to all the listeners, everybody out there who's been engaging with us throughout this season. Thank you to all the new listeners who just found out about us because of this series. We'll be doing much more. It's summertime. All kinds of shit is coming out. So, we will be here for all nerds to be live and popping, doing a lot of things. So thank you for joining us. We will definitely be back with an all-star review because we're gonna have to talk more about this show one way or the other. Like, this shit's phenomenal. It deserves to be discussed more and more. God willing, we will have Chase Conley or Bo DeMaio themselves on the show, or both, very soon. Working on both, so we will see what happens. Make sure you head over to forallnerds.com and pick up this pre-order for the Magneto is Right t-shirt, which, as we've seen throughout this season, my man was always right. We need to say my name Magneto shirt too, boy, because that man
Yo,
Yeah.
and let us know if y'all want the dark chocolate Phoenix shirt too. That might have to come out. But as BenHaMeen said, make sure, can you back up a little bit again so we can see that beautiful Magneto is right, okay? In the present, in the form that actually comes in with the white with the black font, as well as black with white font with the red X in the middle. Make sure y'all go to forallnerds.com to get that. You can get that and there's a pre-order, so that will be out in a few weeks. The shirts that are ready right now is, if you missed out on getting your Gucci Mandalorian shirt, get that shit ASAP. You can also get your Lionel Richie shirt that's up, ready to ship immediately. And we have everything brand new, new supplier, new quality, new everything. So once you get your order in, shit goes out right away, okay? Except for the pre-orders. That will take some weeks. But we said that. So make sure you are hitting up forallnerds.com. You're following us, For All Nerds. You're following me, Tatiana King, this one, DJ BenHaMeen. And make sure y'all listen and share and play the fuck out of his new mix, okay? The $1 Million Baby Jersey Hype remix. When I say that shit go in, it cooks. Come on. That shit goes in. I'm so
it's
proud
all
of y'all,
over. Thank you so much. Thank you for real. And like, we were playing in your car last night, and that was a moment for me hearing, blasting in somebody's car as you drove away was real. I was like, oh, that sounds great.
I rolled down the window. I dropped BenHaMeen off at home, rolled down the window, said, oh, shit.
I was like, that shit sounds great in somebody's car. So that was a moment, because
boom.
I've never heard any of my music blasting out of somebody's car. And that was,
You got to listen to a car. Like, that's the test.
oh yeah, always.
They got to have a good system, thinking
Oh, yeah.
me. But, you got to be in that. Like, you got to be experiencing it.
Yeah, I've been in cars blasting my music, but I've never heard somebody drive off blasting my music. So it's like, hearing the sonnets of that is always like, oh, that sounds good when it's driving on the street.
Sir.
So yeah, I've got a new $1 Million Baby Jersey Hype Black Dance Energy remix. I'm not sure what I'm calling it yet, but it's a remix of Tommy Richmond's $1 Million. Okay, well, that works for me. It's a remix of and actually Black Dance Energy is my yet another brand. Shout out to BigDJEnergy.com. If you head to BlackDanceEnergy.com, you'll also be there. Boom, boom, boom. It's all working. But yeah, so Black Dance Energy, Jersey Hot remix of Tommy Richmond's $1 Million Baby. Shout out to Tommy Richmond's Song of the Summer, or one of them, along with Not Like Us, and who knows what else hits us this summer. But I had to do a dope little remix of it. I got tons of music coming this summer, y'all. I haven't put out shit in, a couple months. I've been stacking, and I got some, I'm really dropping some bangers this summer. So head over to BigDJEnergy.com. Make sure you drop your email in there. You'll get all this hotness in your inbox. Ayo. And also,
Ayo.
Also, make sure you're following me at DJ BenHaMeen. If you're on TikTok, I'm on there. I'm attempting to get a lot more heavy on there, stand on business on there. So please follow me at DJ BenHaMeen on TikTok as well.
And I think I'm Tatiana by Tati on TikTok.
I think I'm at DJ BenHaMeen. If you search for me, it'll come up. I think
you come up. You're consistent with that.
Yep.
And X-Men 97, consistent as fuck.
Basic.
Good shit.
Word up. I think that's about it, man. Fantastic episode. Yeah, them cameos. That was one last thing. I damn sure screamed when Cloak and Dagger popped on screen, dog. I screamed like, oh shit! My girl Tandy Bowen. My girl and Tyrone. Yeah, that nigga's name is Tyrone.
Hey, what's up, internets and the fan fam? This is Tatiana King for All Nerds, and I want to thank you so much for listening and watching the For All Nerds. Make sure you like and subscribe to us only on YouTube.